You know, have you ever really thought about the story behind the food you eat? Today, we're going to do just that. We're diving into the amazing tale of a very special grain from Maharashtra, a tiny little treasure with a massive history. So let's get into the story of Ajara Ghansal rice.
Right off the bat, the story starts with its name, Ajara Ghansal. And it's just beautiful, almost like poetry. Gan means aroma, and sal means elegantly thin. So the name itself is telling you exactly what this rice is all about, its incredible smell, and its delicate shape. It really sets the stage perfectly for what makes it so special.
And this isn't just some poetic nickname, it's an official stamp of identity. This logo, right here, it's for its Geographical Indication, or GI tag. Think of it as a seal of authenticity, a promise that the rice you're holding is the real deal, born from a very specific place and a tradition that goes back generations. So, where does a story like this even begin? Well, it starts in the earth, in the very specific piece of land where Ajara Ghansal grows, a terroir that is truly, truly one of a kind.
See, this is not a rice you can just plant anywhere and expect it to work. Nope. It comes from this tiny, specific cluster of villages in the Ajara Taluka of Kolhapur, Maharashtra. Looking at this map, you can really see just how local this treasure is. Its whole identity is tied to its home.
So what's the big deal about this place? Well, it's like nature created the perfect recipe. It's tucked away in the foothills of the Western Ghats, it's fed by two different rivers, and it gets tons of monsoon rain. You combine all that with this unique, fertile soil, and what do you get? The perfect cradle for growing this amazing, aromatic rice. Okay, so we've talked about the land, but now for the really fun part. Let's talk about the senses. What does this rice actually feel like, smell like, and taste like? Because this is where the legend really comes to life.
It all begins with the aroma. I mean, it's the very first thing you notice, and it's what this rice is famous for. People describe it as this beautiful, nutty fragrance, almost like freshly made popcorn. And that's the scent that just fills the kitchen and makes this rice so incredibly special.
But you know, the experience doesn't end with the smell. The grains themselves, they're short and bold. But when you cook them, something magical happens. They become firm and they separate perfectly, never ever sticky. And the taste is subtly sweet, with absolutely no chalkiness, which is a big sign of its premium quality.
And get this, there's actual science behind that amazing smell. The aroma comes from a chemical compound called 2-AP. And here's the real shocker. Tests have shown that Ajara Ghansal often has a higher concentration of this molecule than even some famous basmati varieties. That's scientific proof of just how powerful its fragrance really is.
But a rice like this isn't just about soil and rain, you know? It's a legacy that's been shaped by people. So let's talk about the human hands and the generations of tradition that have kept this incredible variety alive.
And we're talking about some seriously deep history here. For over 100 years, farming families in this region have been passing down the seeds and, just as importantly, the knowledge from one generation to the next. This is way more than just farming. It's about being the guardians of a living heirloom.
And they do it the old-school way. The whole process is guided by the rhythm of the monsoons. They rely on organic farmyard manure and they stay away from synthetic chemicals. And this is so important. The rice is often harvested and polished by hand. That gentle, low-tech approach is absolutely vital for protecting those delicate grains and locking in that signature aroma. You know what's really cool? This rice even has a royal connection. Way back in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, local royalty, like Shrimant Gorped, actively encouraged farmers to grow it. That kind of patronage was huge. It helped elevate the rice from just a local crop to a prestige item, which really helped ensure its survival. So all this rich history has really cemented its place in the culture. Now let's look at how this king of paddy makes its journey from sacred rituals and royal feasts right into a modern kitchen, maybe even yours.
It earned that nickname, King of Paddy, for a very good reason. That title reflects just how much it was, and still is, revered. In a place with tons of different rice varieties, Ajara Ghansal was the one chosen for the most important occasions. That's a true sign of its cultural importance.
And its versatility is just incredible. It's the heart and soul of a simple, everyday meal of dal and rice, but at the same time, it's the star of a festive biryani. It's considered sacred enough to be used in modak, those sweet dumplings offered to Lord Ganesha, and it's so gentle and digestible that it's often a baby's very first solid food. It's really part of life, from the very beginning to the biggest celebrations. But when you have a legacy this rich, how do you protect it in the modern world? Well, that brings us to the next chapter in this story, the fight to preserve this amazing treasure.
I mean, think about it. In a world that so often prizes quantity over quality, that wants bigger and faster crops, how does a traditional, low-yield rice like this even survive? How do you protect a legacy that's more than a century old?
The answer is that GI tag we mentioned earlier. It's a bit like champagne from France or Parmesan cheese from Italy. A GI tag is basically a legal guarantee that says this product comes from this exact place and it has the unique qualities of that place. It's a really powerful way to protect authenticity.
And getting this protection was a real community effort. After 100 years of farmers carefully preserving this rice, the local Farmers Association finally, officially applied for the GI tag in 2014. And in 2016, they did it. Ajara Ghansal became the very first rice from all of Maharashtra to earn this important protection.
So what does this all really mean? For you and me, it's a guarantee we're getting the real thing. And just as importantly, it helps ensure that the farmers of Ajara get a fair price for their incredible work and for protecting this heritage. It helps keep the whole tradition alive for the next generation.
When you put it all together, it's so clear that Ajara Ghansal is so much more than just a crop. It's a living, breathing cultural artifact. Every single grain holds the story of its land, the story of the hands that grew it, and the story of a legacy that's been loved for generations. It kind of makes you think, doesn't it? If one tiny little grain of rice can hold this whole universe of history, culture, and nature, it leaves us with a pretty big question. What stories are hidden in your food?